We are a few weeks away from Dune Part 2, my most anticipated film of 2024. And before the release of Dune Part 2, I have decided to review a few Denis Villeneuve movies leading up to Dune Part 2, excluding the first Dune because I'm not really in a rush to re-review that movie. My thought still stands on that first Dune. So let's start with this film that I'm very excited to talk about. Hey movie buffs, I'm Jack Benner, and oh yeah, I got a new background. I have been working on this background for a while. That's probably one of the reasons why I haven't posted in a while. But I am very excited to start doing movie reviews with this new background, starting with this film. And welcome to my review of Prisoners. Prisoners is a 2013 crime thriller from director Denis Villeneuve starring Hugh Jackman, Jake Gyllenhaal, Viola Davis, Terrence Howard, Maria Bello, Melissa Leo, and Paul Dano. What a terrific cast we have in this film. Prisoners has a simple premise of two families coming over for Thanksgiving dinner, one family played by Hugh Jackman and Maria Bello, the other played by Viola Davis and Terrence Howard, and after dinner, suddenly both of their young daughters suddenly go missing. Both families and a police detective played by Jake Gyllenhaal are doing everything they can to find him. Prisoners was my introduction to Denis Villeneuve as a filmmaker. I remember being excited for this film back then based on the great trailers and incredible cast that I already mentioned. I absolutely loved Prisoners when I first watched it back in 2013 and being blown away by it, and certainly a phenomenal first impression for me from Denis Villeneuve. And now 10 years later, oh my god, I can't believe this film is 10 years old now. Time flies, oh my god. I still adore Prisoners in every single way. And honestly, this is my favorite Denis Villeneuve film. I do love Arrival, Blade Runner 2049, and Dune Part 1, and I do hope Dune Part 2 is amazing, but everything about the craft and filmmaking is on point in Prisoners, and it just proves why Denis Villeneuve is a master filmmaker. Let's start this review with the pros. First, the performances are phenomenal all around. It's very apparent watching the film, you see how fully invested the cast is and their complete faith in Denis Villeneuve as a filmmaker. Starting with Hugh Jackman, this is still to date my favorite not Wolverine performance from him. I do love him as Wolverine, in particular Logan, and excited to see him return in Deadpool 3 this July, but I like to give him recognition in roles outside of Wolverine like this and The Prestige. And his performance in Prisoners is just absolutely phenomenal. Jackman achieves incredible results playing a father who's desperate, austere, and stern at willing to do anything to find his daughter to become sane again. And as soon as he starts to go insane and more frustrated he gets, it's almost frightening. Just to the extreme his character goes by taking matters into his own hands. And just looking back to the scene with one torture scene involving a hammer and a sink, and another conversation between him and Jake Gyllenhaal in a car, I just thought, how was Hugh Jackman overlooked for an Oscar nomination for Best Actor that year? I understand it was competitive that year, and I don't think he would have won that year, but man, I would have loved to seen him get some recognition for that role. And honestly, I thought he was better in this movie than he was in Les Miserables, which he was also amazing in. And part of me does think that is a good and well-made movie, but there's another part of me that finds that movie a little cheesy, honestly. And he's still one of my favorite actors, and this movie shows that. And this is also one of my favorite performances that Jake Gyllenhaal has ever given. He is terrific in this movie as Detective Loki. He does such a great job playing a straightforward detective, and he makes his character so interesting and captivating to watch. And I also thought he was very believable as a police officer with this and End of Watch. Great movie, by the way. And I was also interested by the mystery surrounding his character, something I found impressive on repeat viewings. And do you notice watching this movie how many times Jake Gyllenhaal often blinks while watching this movie? I felt like that was a great little tick added by Jake Gyllenhaal, knowing how much pressure this character is under. And two supporting performances in this movie I find to be underrated. One, Terrence Howard. He is great in this movie and one of the best roles he has done. And he brings so much vulnerability and apprehension as he watches Jackman handles things his own way. And another one in particular I loved, Paul Dano. He brought so much creepiness as a mentally ill and disturbed person that leaves you asking questions like, could he have something to do with the kidnapped girls, or maybe he's innocent? And Paul Dano pulled that off amazingly with little dialogue. And the scenes where Hugh Jackman's character is interrogating Paul Dano and putting him through so much torture. My god, it is just so brutal and disturbing to watch. Just Oh, God. And that scene with the hammer and the sink, and I heard that was the most ferocious take they used of Hugh Jackman in that scene, my god, I was speechless. And there was also another disturbing scene involving a bag and Paul Dano's face, so many bruises and blood, and when they take that off, and also I liked in that scene how they use blocking with the sink, and just the reveal of that face, oh my god, it stayed in my memory. Just, this film is a tough watch, oh my god. And this just proves how great of an actor Paul Dano is, and seeing him in dark roles like this and his unique take on the Riddler in The Batman, which I also loved him in. Viola Davis and Maria Bello are also excellent at selling the devastation they're going through with their missing daughters, and Melissa Leo is great as well, especially in the third act. Don't want to spoil anything. Oh, she killed it. Now this film shows why Denis Villeneuve is a fantastic director. Starting off with Roger Deakins' cinematography, mwah, chef's kiss. It is stellar and shot to perfection. Everything from the lighting, framing, and darkness of the shots is all immaculate. And it does a fantastic job capturing how bleak, dark, and grim this movie is. Now, this may be an unpopular opinion, but this was actually my pick for Best Cinematography of 2013. Now, I do think Gravity is a beautifully shot movie, and I am happy with that movie winning Best Cinematography, but Prisoners was my pick that year. And something I feel like doesn't get enough recognition in Prisoners is the late great Johan Johansson's amazing musical score here. It is just so eerie, haunting, and ominous, and it contributes excellently to the dark tone of the film. Hearing this incredible score makes me very sad that he passed away in 2018. Rest in peace to an incredible composer. For behind the camera, Denis Villeneuve knows exactly what he is freaking doing with his precise and potent direction. From the coordinated shot composition to give the right shot, to either time it perfectly or give a shot a particular meaning, and everything professionally to craft such an enticing crime movie. Despite the story not being the most original, admittedly, the execution in this movie is marvelous. That makes me adore it. The screenplay of this movie is riveting. From scene to scene, I was hooked from shot one to the final shot. And every time I watch it, I'm fully invested in the mystery and these characters. Just how stressful this movie gets as it goes on. Just wondering how it's going to be solved, and I'm really invested in these characters and worried about their flaws. And there were even times watching this movie, I didn't feel like I was watching a movie. And it just felt so real. I was actually there with these characters. It was almost scary. And this movie is 2.5 hours long. It is a slow burn film, and it does move at a slow pace, but I was never bored once. There was not a single second I was either bored nor disinterested. I was fully hooked throughout the entire duration, and I didn't want it to end, honestly. And I think the title of Prisoners is perfect for this movie. Because from my perspective, the title Prisoners, meaning characters being held captive by their own guilt and flaws, and just what's being haunted by them in their past or present and worried about now. As for issues or nitpicks, honestly, I don't have one issue with this movie. Not with the runtime, was never bored, didn't really have a complaint about that, so I don't really have a single flaw with this movie. To sum up, Prisoners is a dark, tense, riveting, and engaging crime drama that still stands as a magnum opus for Denis Villeneuve as a filmmaker. Anchored by a spectacular cast ensemble, terrific and riveting screenplay, on-point direction, and incredible cinematography shot to perfection. If you are planning on giving Prisoners another watch, please watch it as soon as you can. I still think it holds up. Or if you have never seen this movie and considering about giving this movie a watch for the first time, definitely do that. Especially if you're a fan of Denis Villeneuve's work after this movie. Or if you love a well-crafted and engaging crime film, look no further than this film. Although I do want to warn you, this is a very dark and depressing movie. It's a tough film to watch emotionally. Regardless of that, I still think this movie is a must-watch. Upon thinking about it more over time, this was my favorite film of 2013. And as much as I do love other movies like 12 Years a Slave, The Wolf of Wall Street, and Her, those films along with Prisoners are my S-tier films of 2013. But Prisoners just gets everything right for me. From engagement, filmmaking, storytelling, depth, all of that just fires on all cylinders, and that is why Prisoners is my favorite film of 2013. And I'm still happy that 10 years later, people are still remembering this film as one of Denis Villeneuve's best, because it is truly a masterwork of filmmaking. And now to grade it, I'm going to give Prisoners, but bam, 5 out of 5 stars and A+. I'm still disappointed that this film received only one Oscar nomination at the 2014 Oscars. It did get a well-deserved Best Cinematography nomination, and despite that this movie came out in mid-September, a little early into fall, and October through December are bigger months for awards contenders, and this movie was just overlooked by the Oscars, which is an absolute shame. This film deserved more recognition in Best Picture, Director, Acting nominations, particularly Jackman, Screenplay, Editing, Score, because everything about the craft and Prisoners is just exceptional, and I still, 10 years later, absolutely love it. It's one of the best crime films I've ever seen, and it's one of my favorite films of all time. So I'd like to ask you guys, what do you guys think of Prisoners if you've seen it? Do you agree, disagree with my review? Or if you've never seen it, are you interested in checking out the film or not? Let me know down below. Did you enjoy hearing my thoughts on this movie and want to see more reviews like this in the future? If yes, please hit that like and subscribe button if you're new here, and don't forget that notification bell for my next upload in the future. It really means a lot. And until the next video, I'm Jack Benner, and look forward to another movie review.